Hi. I just saw something that said trying to reconnect. I tell you, it is just always something here. All right, looks like we're good. Looks like we're reconnected. And now I'm just checking to see that I'm really here. So, hello, and I'm Roberta Colasino. I'm an independent demonstrator, Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, here in the Finger Lakes region of upstate New York. And I come to you every Wednesday night, usually at 7 o'clock, sometimes a little later, with a free crafting class where we typically work on cards, but sometimes other things like home decor or gift items. And now as we're approaching the holiday season, gift items for sure will be popping up. Okay, there we go. Well, I'm frozen on my screen. Isn't that weird? There we go, maybe. Nothing like being frozen with your mouth open. It's kind of like when someone takes a picture of you just as you're shoving food into your mouth. Yeah, so it's doing some weird things on my end, but the camera image looks like it's fine and like it's recording. So I'm not quite sure. Sometimes I refresh and that helps, and sometimes I'm afraid it doesn't help, but we'll find out. Okay, so all right, it's like it's kind of like when someone takes a picture of you just as you're shoving food into your mouth. Okay, that's especially strange because I definitely turned off the sound, so I don't know why it turned itself back on. Okay, I think we're good, and I'm going to pretend we are. Whether we are or we aren't. So tonight I said I was bringing you something called S.I.P cards. All right, and S.I.P stands for stamps, ink, and paper. And basically these means simple cards. These mean cards that you don't need to have embossing folders and machines and dies. You might have some punches. Obviously, you might have some designer series paper, although we won't be using any tonight at all. And you would have some ink pads for sure, and possibly the reinkers. The reinkers are great because they honestly can be used in place of watercolor paint. And the reason I say just don't go out and buy some watercolor paint, which you're welcome to do, but I say that because the thing that makes Stampin' Up! Special and a little bit different from a lot of other companies is that all of our products coordinate. So you will have markers, and you will have colored pencils, and you will have designer series paper and cardstock and ink that all match. They all coordinate with each other. So you just don't have to worry about trying to run to the store and find a match for something you have at home and it looks like it matches, but then it turns out it doesn't. So that's what we're going to be doing tonight, is some watercoloring, but without watercolor paints. We're going to use what we have, which in my case are the Stampin' Up! Ink pads and reinkers. All right, so I will go ahead and turn the camera down. We will pray to the internet gods that they're going to let me continue to be on the internet tonight, like I'd like to be. I'm going to move my camera a little bit, sorry for the wiggle jiggle, a little bit closer. Okay, it would help if you loosened the right screw thing. Okay, there we go. Alrighty, and again, just to get a little bit closer. Now, the problem with getting this close is that the camera is now pretty much in my face, and so I very often end up having to lean forward to do something, and while that's happening, unfortunately, I can hit the camera with my head. I try really, really hard not to, but it can happen, and if it does, well, if it does, it does. What can I say? All right, we're seeing a little bit more stuff off to the left here than I'd like to, but I'm just not going to worry about it right now. So this is me, 11 Lakes Stamper. This group is a public Facebook group called 11 Lakes Stamper Creatives. I also have a Facebook business page, which I started it like in 2020 and just never did anything with it. And this afternoon I said, hey, why don't I get that going again? So I did. So it's been since 2020 since anything was posted on there. But my most recent coffee and a card class, which is coming up on October 14th, will be on there. It is always the second Tuesday of the month. All right, and then I also have a YouTube channel, 11 Lakes Stamper, and my email address is 11lakestamper@gmail.com. And for now, you can shop with me at www.rcolosino.stampinup.net, and that should bring you not only to the Stampin' Up! Store, but to the Stampin' Up! Store with my picture on it and my name on it. And if it doesn't, then when you, I think it's on the left-hand side where it says choose a demonstrator, I would appreciate it oh so much if you would choose me as your demonstrator. So I'm hoping that you will do that. I've got shadows here. Let's see if we can get rid of those. I'm not quite sure what's causing them. Who knew a glue bottle could make such a shadow, huh? All right, so let's get started. All right, so card number 1, I have chosen a white, basic white card base, and then a layer of Summer Splash, which is one of our, not the newest in colors. Yes, maybe they are. No, they're not. Not the newest in colors. These are the 2024, 2026 in colors. All right, and then another layer that's going to go on top of that. So it'll be a 3-layer card. So right away, without doing anything fancy, but adding different size pieces of paper, you've kind of added a little bit of a touch of something more interesting to the card than you might normally have if it was just a plain old card. All right. So we're going to take this piece and keep it out where we can use it. Now there are multiple ways of using watercolor, and I'm only using the regular Stampin' Up! Basic White cardstock right now, so that means we can't get things super wet. If we wanted to do that, I would be using the Fluid 100 watercolor paint. All right, so there's a couple of ways that you can watercolor with Stampin' Up! Colors. So one way is to, let's see, I think I got out 2 sets of colors and then did not get the one I was really looking for. So let's see, we're going to kind of combine them. I'm looking for 3 green colors. All right, so I'm still thinking summer, but we'll get into fall, and Christmas is going to be like in a week or so. I just feel like it'll be here. So I'd like to make a background where I have 1, 2, 3, or maybe 1, 2, 3, sort of blobs of color, of different shades of green, because we're going to use a tree. All right, so one way to do this would be to dip my stamping block, which normally has a stamp on it, into the ink directly, and then stamp with it. But it works best if you get it a little bit wet, and it's kind of hard to get it wet without spraying it and making kind of a mess. But that is one way to do it for sure, all right? But if I were going to do that, I think I would use the watercolor paper. So instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a palette like this. I certainly could have found a smaller one, but this is what popped up first. So I'm going to take a palette, and then these are all of my Stampin' Up! Re-inkers and all of the Stampin' Up! Colors. And if you can see, there's little dots on the top. I used a 1/8 of an inch hole punch to punch out little dots in the color that these inks are, but I punched them out from the cardstock so that I can find them from the top looking down without having to make a big old mess. All right, so let's see which ones I'm going to use. I want all greens, so I want, well, I don't know, maybe Mossy Meadow would be okay. No, I want to stick with summery colors, I think. So let's see. I will do some Granny Apple Green, and then I think, hang on, I didn't punch out dots for all of them. I could even do some soft seafoam, and then something kind of in between in darkness. Garden Greens, I think, a little too dark. Pretty Peacock is a little too dark. All right, you know what, I've got Shy Shamrock, but that means I know I have Summer Splash too. Let's use Summer Splash since that's the color cardstock we're using. And let's not use the soft seafoam. Wait, no, yes. Use the soft seafoam and not the Shy Shamrock. Because I'm kind of looking for some, like a gradient from one to the other. So kind of from dark to medium to light, all right? When you're using these for watercolor, you honestly do not need a lot. Like 1 drop, well, and I ended up with 2 because it was on the end, is really kind of enough, okay? So we're going to do that. I have a big ugly sponge that we're going to use later on. I apologize, I couldn't find anything cleaner. I did sort of bleach it and I cleaned it up, but it's just not pretty. All right, so now we've got the Granny Apple Green. So we started out with the Summer Splash, then Granny Apple Green, and then last but not least is a very pretty, very pale green color, soft seafoam. Okay, and I'm guessing we won't need much more than that. And I've got a variety of watercolor brushes here. You can also use our water painters, I think they're called now. We've switched manufacturers, so sometimes I get confused about what they're called. All right, I know I need to do this so that you can see what I'm doing, but first off, I want a kind of a big brush, not a super huge brush, but kind of a big brush. And maybe I do want a square tip brush, and unfortunately I only have one of those in watercolor. And I've got a jar of water here in front of me. I kept it covered because I was just so afraid I was going to hit it and spill. And of course now I can't open it. Oh my goodness, you're kidding me. Okay, there we go. It's a big old pickle jar. Smells a little bit like dill pickles, but I don't think that will hurt anything. All right, so I'm going to dab some water on there to lighten that up. I'm going to do that for all of them. Right now I'm not mixing it yet. I'm just blobbing some water in. Okay, for some reason it looks like there's not as much there, but I think I'm just not seeing it. Okay, so now I'm going to mix because I want it to be fairly light. That looks good. Okay. And then this one. Yeah, and that's definitely darker. That's okay. And then we'll rinse the brush off. So now my water really looks like pickles because it's green. And then this one is the Summer Splash, which is kind of a blue-green. All right, so to make them lighter, if I wanted to, I would just add more water. But I don't think I want to make them that light because I'm going to make my tree darker. Okay, so let's see what we're going to do here. I do want to, let's grab a paper towel. Oh, I brought a bunch in with me. There we go. Okay, so just a paper towel that I can blot my brush off on if I want to. Let's get this in camera view. So what I'm going to try to do is make 3 squares. But they're going to be very, like, if you want to call them abstract, you can call them whatever you want, but they're not going to be your typical square. And they're going to be about, I don't know, what would you call this, about a third of the way up on the page, maybe? So we're going to do like 3 squares. And I'm not going to try to make them super neat. Obviously, I just went off the line there. And I also don't want to make them super, super watery because this isn't watercolor paper. So that one certainly is not at all neat, and I guess that's what I was going for, so I'm not going to complain. All right, then this one, and a little bit more water. Okay, that's kind of a little bit more of what I was going for, but I might widen that other one up. And now the last green, this is the really light one. My desk is actually reasonably cleared off, but even so, I wasn't quite sure where to put that palette. It was a little bit bigger than what I was intending to use. Okay. And then let's wash that off. And let's get back into this one and just see if I can clean it up a little bit. Like I said, I didn't necessarily want it to be beautiful. All right, so the reason that's looking kind of weird is because the color is so light that what you're actually seeing more of there is the wetness on the card. So we're going to dry it a little bit, and that should help. When I dry anything that's wet, I dry it on the back and the front. You see how it's kind of wrinkly and stained on the back? So what happens as you dry it is it wrinkles some more, it'll curl a little bit. And by going back and forth between the front and back, you can prevent too much curling from happening. Okay. The reason you want to be careful not to get regular cardstock too wet is because it will start to pill, just like a sweater pills. There, I think I just dropped some of the darker ink there. There we go. So it's not pilling yet, but I had to be careful to make sure that that didn't happen. So now I have a couple of tree sets, and some of them are old and some of them are new. So what's interesting is I forgot to grab the one that is actually current. But Stampin' Up! Has had over the years many tree sets. The Autumn Trees obviously has trees in it. And then there's another one that carried over from last year, which I thought I pulled off the shelf, but apparently I did not. Okay, so this one is current. It was in last year's spring catalog, and it carried over to this year's annual catalog, to the 2025-2026. So we've got this one, and I had some concern that it might not fit very well, but I think it will actually. So, oh yeah, that'll be just fine. So let's use something that's current. But, as I said, Stampin' Up! Has had multiple tree stamps over the years. This one, I believe, I only mention it because this one was so popular that it was available in a catalog for like 15 years before they finally retired it, and I was oh so sad. This is another one, and this one is from, retired in 2023. This one was was designed by another Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. I liked it because you could make it a creepy Halloween tree if you wanted to by stamping it in black, but it had all the seasons, so you could have snowflakes near the tree, you could have green leaves or colorful leaves, or you could just have kind of abstract whatever, and you could hang a bird feed or a birdhouse from it. So I did pull out some things that were retired, and why that might interest you is that you might have some of these at home, and if you do, then you're good to go if you don't have the current one. All right, so we're going to put this one on a slightly larger block here. And I'm going to ink it up in a darker green. So I'm trying to decide, do I want to use, I don't want to use spruce because it's clearly not a spruce tree. I don't want to use pretty peacock either. I'm feeling like either garden green or mossy meadow. Either one I think would be fine. Garden green is plenty dark enough too, so that was my goal, was for it just to be dark enough. So I'm going to ink that up. Because it's a big stamp and it's on a larger block, instead of bringing the stamp to the pad, because I think it's almost bigger than the pad, I'm going to bring the pad to the stamp. And I'm going to be sure to turn my stamp around a few different ways, make sure I'm hitting all the inky spots. So you see I'm really moving it around, but I'm keeping it very level. I don't want to tip it, because if I tip it, then I get ink on here, which can accidentally get on my card, and that makes me unhappy. All right, so there we go. I think that that is good and inked up, but you can also see here that there's a little bit of green on the edges, even though I have done some stamp therapy on this one, or stamp surgery. So I just want to be careful not to rock the stamp. I'm going to breathe on it a little bit. We call it huffing on it. And I'm going to put it kind of smack in the middle, but a little bit up towards the top because I'm leaving room for a sentiment. I'm going to put it down, and I'm going to press pretty hard, but I want to be careful that if I'm rubbing with my right hand, I'm holding it in place with my left hand. And if I'm rubbing with my left hand, I'm holding it in place with my right hand, because I don't want this to wiggle and move around. I could have used my Stamparatus platform, but I didn't. So there you go. All right, so we can see those little spots through the tree. If you wanted to use a more bare tree, like the one that I showed you a couple of minutes ago, then you would see more of those spots. I could have possibly made those bigger because I was using a bigger tree, but to be honest with you, I didn't think about it. So when and if you make a card like this, you'll want to think about all of those things. Sometimes I don't. All right, so now we might as well, as long as we're using that set, take a look. So it has a sympathy setting, which is, or a sentiment, which is nice. It has a happy birthday, and it has a congratulations. So it's pretty darn generic, and what I like about that is this card really could be anything. It certainly would be appropriate for a sympathy card. There's nothing too happy or bright about it. Certainly for a birthday, and certainly for congratulations. It could be good for any of those things. I think I'll go for congratulations, only because I always make thank you cards and I don't use as many as I think I'm going to. So I think that I would, excuse all the reaching, I think I'd like to do congratulations, because that can be for retirement, anniversary, birthday, engagement, graduation, you name it, you can use that for that. And I think I'll just go ahead and use the garden green and kind of keep the green theme going. I certainly don't have to. If you prefer black, you could use black. Okay. I'm sort of lining that up on a line there, and then hoping that I get this straight. It's hard to do without standing up and looking down from above. Okay, oh, very good. Ooh, I love when that happens. All right. So that's pretty simple. All I did was a little bit of watercoloring, which honestly can just be scribbling. Okay, you're not actually painting anything. I'm not asking you to paint the tree. All right, now this layer is going to get glued onto that layer. So it still feels like it's a little damp just because it feels cool, but it doesn't really feel wet to me, so I think we're okay. And what I'm going to do, whereas normally I concentrate on getting around the edges and the corners, I'm going to put some glue right where those are, where you can see where the paint was, and that way I know that I'm going to get that down. And I can even, once the card is done, set it under a heavy book or something like that just to make sure that we kind of knock the bubble, the wrinkle out of that. All right, but by putting glue right behind where I watercolored, I think I can press it down and have it stay down. I'm not too worried about that. Okay, and then we're going to get our basic white card base and glue this layer onto that layer. And if you're doing this, try to be a little bit more patient than I'm being. You know, let your stuff dry. If you want to use the heat tool, that's fine. If you let it dry naturally, I think you'll get just as much, if not more, wrinkling. So I don't think that's necessarily a solution. You don't need to be quite that patient. But take your time and make sure it's really dried. Okay, so like I said, just by adding the extra layers, you give this just a little extra something without having any special talents or any special experience, and it's a lovely card. And I could put the tree on the inside too, or part of the tree on the inside, and then the rest of the sentiment. So congratulations on your birthday, on your retirement, on your promotion. You know, you get it, right? It could be for anything. So congratulation cards are great. There's a very strange noise outside. Some kind of an animal, but I'm not quite sure what kind of an animal. Okay, so I'm seeing now that I got a little bit sticking up there, but I know I got glue there. So what I'm going to do, let's see, which card is the next card? I have a punch I could put down on it, or I can put some pads down on it, or I can put some, some blocks down on it. Let's do that. We'll put a couple of heavy blocks down on it. I don't know what that is. It sounds kind of like a bird. It's very sort of a trilly sound. I have a friend who's a bird watcher. I'll have to ask her what that sound is. Okay, so, all right, I have a card base there. I'm not sure what that goes to. Imagine that. All right, so this one is going to be fun. So we don't need the punch for this one. The punch was really just here for me to show you something. Okay, this is the one I think I'm using the sponge for. Okay, so what I decided to do, this is a new in color, and this is called Cloud Cover. I never know what the camera really is picking up and what this looks like to you. It's a bluish gray. I would say it's kind of a sky blue, but maybe a cloudy day sky blue, and it's very, very pretty. Very pretty. So what I've done is I've picked that to be my card base, and then I've picked just a smaller piece of the same color to be the top layer. And then this is a light color, so you could choose not to put any liner on it, or you could add a piece of white. All right, so what we're going to do with this one, this is going to be a portrait length card, and this is where my yucky ugly sponge comes in. Okay, so and you know what, that palette is not going to cut it, so we're going to have to do something a little bit different, which is okay. So instead of using the re-inkers this time. I hope I don't regret this. I'm going to try this. I've never done this before. Never tried this particular thing before. I am going to, let's see, I mixed up my colors. Oh, and Old Olive. Okay, here we go. I'm going to start with Old Olive on the bottom, kind of like it's grass, although there's no real, theme to this. And I'm going to take my Yucky Dirty sponge. It has a really fat end and a skinnier end, and I want the thinner end, I think. I'm going to dip it in my ink pad. I really don't think it'll hurt anything. It's not soaking wet. The only problem is I'm also not sure if it's going to work. I'm also sitting here thinking that I really probably needed 4 sponges because I have no idea how this is going to stamp. And I'm also thinking, hey Amy, how are you? I'm also thinking that if I was thinking, I would have, there we go, okay. Then if I was thinking, I would have had more sponges for sure. All right, so that works. That's kind of what I was going for. Well, not kind of, it is what I was going for, but now I just don't know how to clean this off. I could use the other side, but then it'll be, I should have started with the lighter color first. Okay, so I'll tell you all the things I've done wrong. I should have started with the lighter color first, but then I still would have had to do a red at some point, and I don't know how that would have gone. I think maybe if I just keep blotting it on my paper towel, it might be okay. I'm going to go to a yellow next, and so I could kind of muck up my ink pad. Another thing I could do, hold the fort. I could take my ink pad and blop that down on here. Okay. And then do this to get ink on it. I bet I'm not getting as much ink this way as I would have with the other method though, but we will see. All right, and then I've got to wipe that off, at least make sure it's dry, because I have to move this up a little bit. And then we're going to leave some space. And we're going to come in with the yellow and do the same thing. Okay, now because I'm doing this on the cloud cover and not on white, the colors are not going to jump out at you as much as they would if I were doing it on white. And that was my choice. You can certainly imagine that the colors would be more vibrant on white. But that's what I wanted to do when I did it. So you can choose other colors, and obviously, as always, you can learn from my mistakes. I'd like to tell you that I do them all on purpose, just so that you'll learn from them, but that would be a big fat lie. All right, so we'll do this again. This is the nice thing about having some kind of a glass mat, but there are also silicone mats that will work for purposes like this, and well, I have one underneath here. It's not silicone, though. I'm not sure what it is. All right, so I'm going to get that nice and orangey. That's pumpkin pie, by the way. So the first color was Old Olive. That's a green. And then crushed curry, which is a yellowish color, kind of a mustardy color. And now we're using pumpkin pie. All right, wipe that off. I don't really care if I get ink on the back of the card here. I just don't want it to be wet. Okay, so now some of the orange. Yeah, and I'm thinking that this would look better on white. I might make another one with white off camera and show that one to you at a later date, just so you can make up your own mind, but you can probably envision it. Look how much more vibrant the colors are just on the white paper towel, so that tells you something. I just kind of wanted it to sort of mimic a sky, like a, not a rainy day sky, but a kind of a cloudy day sky. All right, now, also I'm thinking too that I could have, if I was going to continue using this sponge for only this kind of thing, it would be nice to maybe cut away some pieces of the sponge so that this wasn't quite so even, quite so squared off, so that my my marks would just be a little bit more irregular, because I like that, but some people really like the regular stuff too, I know that. Okay, so the red is very bright, and the red's going to come all the way to the top, which was also not my goal. I kind of wanted there to be some more of the cloud cover at the top. But you know, we're kind of experimenting here. We're kind of playing, and I'm just not worried about it. All right, now I'm just sort of wondering what would happen if I just took the little bit of red that's left on here. Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of muddy. This one I'm definitely just playing. I have not done this before with a regular old kitchen sponge. Judging by the looks of this sponge, I have a feeling it was used to clean up the porch at the beginning of summer. That's what I'm thinking. You know, all the furniture that's just got kind of dust and whatever on it from sitting there all year, all winter. Okay, now what we're going to do, and I think now I definitely want to get black, is we're just going to stamp some greenery on there. I have to stop calling it greenery because it's not always green. Foliage. I keep trying to make myself say foliage instead of greenery, and so far I'm not having luck at making myself do that. So there is, I think it's a stamp set. I tried to find it in the catalog today, so that makes me think that it's an online exclusive. And I have to say, I know I'm not the only demonstrator that's getting a little confused between the online exclusives and the other things. So this is Thoughtful Wishes, which just retired in April of 2025. But again, any type of a stamp set that has any type of a leafy image, or the one that I was just referring to that I think is a online exclusive is a, what do you call it? It's oh, it's not cattails. Maybe it is cattails. It's something kind of like by the ocean, maybe seagrass, something like that. All right, so I'm going to get my black ink pad. And just in case you haven't seen this before, I have taken the Whisper White ink pad, which comes uninked. It comes with a white inker, but uninked. And I've inked it up with Memento black ink from a re-inker, because I like our foam pads better than the linen pads. And I like the way it inks up better, but it's the same color. And it's not, technically not a Stampin' Up! Ink, because we purchased this ink from Memento and then sell it. So I'm just going to put that on here. Okay, I kind of had to put it down there because it was curling up to meet me. And I want to do the same thing I did before, hold it down, but I want to press really well. If you have a stamp platform, this might be a good time to use it. I don't want it wiggling too much. All right, I would have liked it a little bit darker than that, and with a stamp platform, I could go over it again, but I can't without one. So that's just how that works sometimes. Okay. I'm just like piling up all these stamps over here without cleaning them, which is not the best of ideas. All right. So this is a card, and I like to do this a lot. If you've watched me a while, you probably know this. Sometimes I like to not put a sentiment on a card at all. All right. And I just like to save it for when I know I'm going to need it, and then just put it on the inside. Plus, sometimes I don't like to put a sentiment on the outside when I kind of like what's going on there, and I don't want to mess it up with some type of a sentiment or a label or whatever. But again, that is entirely up to you. So this is popping up a bit here, so I'm going to take my bone folder and just press it down a little bit so that it doesn't do quite so much popping up. And then we're going to glue this layer on. So this layer, I believe, is 4 by 5 1/4. I could have actually made a label that was the exact same size or stamped on the front. The problem with that is if you do the front of your card without a layer and you mess it up, then you've messed up the front of your card. So either you can't use that card base anymore, or you end up putting a layer on top of it anyway. So it just seems easier to me sometimes just to put the layer on. Plus, even though the layers are the same color, it still gives it just a little bit of something. So again, simple. What did you need for that? Ink and a sponge and one stamp, right? And maybe I would suggest that you use a clean sponge, not a dirty sponge. All right, now, here's another thing we could do, just to give this a little zhuzh, is we could, and you know what, this will tell us a little bit of what this is going to look like when it's wet. So let's see. How about if I use the Old Olive? So again, it's just kind of like the ground. And since I already stuck this in the Old Olive once, I guess I can do it again. Oh, but you know what? There's some red on there too. Well, we will see what happens. We can always flip it over and just use the other side and call it a day, right? Okay. Yeah, so that is definitely Old Olive. It just looks darker. But it is, I think it's a little bit brighter. Although brown and red are complementary colors, so if there was red on there, not brown or red, green and red are complementary colors, so if there was red and green on my sponge and they mix together, it will create kind of a brownish color. So that's a good thing to know. A color wheel, if you're a crafter, is a wonderful thing to have, especially if you're mixing paints or inks or things like that. A color wheel is just a great thing to have. I've learned so much from my color wheel. Okay, now I want to dry that off a tad, and then we'll glue this to the inside. And then it's ready for me to put any kind of a sentiment that I want. All right, I got something going on here. Hang on. Okay. Oh, and I hope, maybe I'll remember, maybe I won't. Maybe I shouldn't wait to show you. We've done 2 cards, right? I actually have like 4 cards planned, which is weird because I normally do 3. I think I did 4 at one point, decided it was too much. Started doing 3, and sometimes that took too long. In the last couple of weeks, I've only done 2. And I don't have to do all of these today, obviously, but I planned them just because I liked them all. Okay, so there we go. There's the inside, ready for a sentiment. And then I think I'll just take a quick break from what we were doing here just to show you something, because otherwise I know I'm going to forget. And I'll post it in the group as well. So aside from my coffee and a card class, I like to offer holiday-type classes. And I have a venue now where I can hold classes for more than just a small group of people. I would like to offer a class to make this. You can't quite see the whole thing. Maybe you can. So it is, what did I decide? This one is 6 by 6, okay, so on the outside, but the inside obviously is not the same. So the inside is about 4.5 inches. And in there is a beautiful red cardinal, and I have that stamp. And then we can color that using the blends or using colored pencils. And then there's a some designer series paper in the back, and that's long retired, so we would replace that with something current. And then there's this beautiful little image that comes with that stamp set, which is long retired. And then just a couple of sticks from the backyard. Try to find ones that don't have poison ivy on them. And then some, I think this is white puff paint, which I know you can still get even though Stampin' Up! Doesn't have it. And some white glimmer paper. All right, so if you would like to be part of a class where we make this, would be a lovely gift or just a piece of home decor. You can hang it up on a wall or just stand it up on your mantle or on a piece of, end table, whatever. This one is an actual picture frame, and they're not making this one anymore, so I'm thinking of looking for something else. I would say that I could keep the class easily at $25. All right, so some of that for the frame and the materials and some of that for my time. So let me know if you think you'd be interested in making this piece. I will put the picture of it on the group tonight or tomorrow. I think I just hit the camera, sorry. And we'll go from there. Oh, and it just fell down, but it's fine. Don't worry, it's fine. Okay, never mind. We'll just leave it where it fell. Good grief. All right, so now, next card. Let's see. I like this one. So this one is another one that's using Summer Splash, just because I suddenly decided I really liked that color. Okay, so another one using Summer Splash. And what I did was I took my 2 3/8 inch circle punch. So for this, you would either have to have a circle punch or you would have to just cut out a circle. So really, you just take anything like the top of a jar and trace around it with a pencil and cut it out, and you've got the same thing. All right, we're not actually using these as part of the card. In fact, we're not using this at all, but at some point you could use this, which is why I wrote save on it, because it does have a future purpose. So what I did was I made this the exact same size as the front of the card, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I put the hole so it's maybe a quarter, well, to a third of the way down. So it's not too close to the very top, all right? And what we're going to do is we're going to hold that still so it doesn't go away. In fact, I might take a piece of painter's tape. All right, so this is real painter's tape, which is low tack, but not as low tack as the purple. And I don't see the purple here. I used it, I thought, last week. And then there's actually a white artist's tape that you can get that's even more low tack. I'm not too worried about it because the only thing that it might rip is this, and this is really just a template. So it's not touching anything that's on my card. Okay? And I think that I want to use the Summer Splash ink as well. and a blending brush. So we'll get out, I think I'm going to use a small one. And what I usually do, because this has been used before and recently, is I just take a piece of scrap white paper, and it does have to be white because I really want to see if any color is coming off on there, and it honestly does not look like there's just the faintest hint of color. I'd have to rub all day to get it to even be visible. So I feel like I'm good. And what I'm going to do is color and use this kind of as a stencil, all right? Now, typically, well, I can use this, I guess. Typically, we tap off some of the color on a piece of scrap paper. We start off of the paper that we're using so that we don't make any blobs. This is not a terribly dark color, so that's not as big of a problem, but it can be. Okay, I'm purposely going around the edges first because I want them to be the darkest. It is much easier to build up color using this method than to take away color. In fact, it's pretty impossible to take away color. So you want to build it up slowly, even if it takes a little bit longer and you're a little impatient, as I often am. All right, you want to be careful not to shove the bristles of the brush under your stencil, because then you'll have color poking out where you don't want it. You want this to be a pretty clean circle when you lift up the stencil. Okay, and I'm going to come in a little bit more towards the center, but still hitting the back. I don't want the center to be white, but I want it to be a much, much, much lighter green than what I'm doing on the outside here. And maybe even have one side of this being darker, sort of like a shadow. So we can have that on the left side. Don't really have to overthink this too much. Okay, and then I'm going to go in the middle and around again. And it is very light. I'm going to lift up just to see what it looks like. And okay, I'm happy with that. So that's what it's going to look like, and I'm perfectly okay with that. And if I wanted to make the middle a little bit darker, I could, as long as I don't go over the edges. All right, so that is Summer Splash. And now we've got another tree thing. All right, so what we're going to do with the tree, and I think this time I'd kind of like to pick another tree, but I was hoping to pick one with leaves on it. Now I can add leaves to this one, but then, well, I don't know if I care if it goes over the edges. So let's then use, where is my pecan pie? I know I got it out. Here we go. So we'll stamp the tree part in pecan pie. And again, this is retired. I apologize for that, but Stampin' Up! Isn't going to come out with a bunch of tree stamps every year. So one year it might be one that has no leaves and you add them. One year it might be one that's like a pine tree. Another year it might be something else. It's always something just slightly different. Okay, now, excuse my arm. I guess I really need to put these off on the side, not in front of me. All right. Oh, that's kind of not big enough. All right, so let's switch. Do a little switcheroo here. That'll fit there. And we'll use this block, which should be mostly fine. And if it hangs off the edge a little bit or whatever, that's okay with me. So again, larger stamp. So we're going to bring the stamp pad to the stamp to ink it up. And I just stuck my thumb in it, so I'm going to have to be careful. So one thing I like about crafting in jeans is if nothing else, you can wipe it off on your pants, and it's never dark enough to show. So that's not an issue. I'm not ruining my pants. All right, and then I'm going to come so that the tree is kind of in the middle, but maybe, well, I do want it to be a little bit down so it doesn't look like it's floating in the air. All right, and same thing. Hold it steady with one hand and rub with the other. All right, and standing up does work. So if you stand up, I tell people, don't do CPR on it. You don't want to crush it. You don't want to flatten out the stamp. But you want to make sure that you get it done. All right, and then when you lift it up, hold it down and lift straight up. Oh, that's so pretty. And actually, I kind of like it as a, a tree. Like I said, that would make a really cool haunted tree type of thing, done in black. And then with this being like a moon in red and yellow in the back. So think of like a Halloween card, some bats flying around. Woo, very cool. Very cool. But no bats for us today. Okay, so the other stamp, where is it? I lost it already. In here is this one with the leaves. And I am not especially good at this. I'm here to tell you. All right, although I don't think this is one that really lines up. In fact, I'm pretty sure it doesn't. So I think if we want this to be a fall card, what we can do is do a little bit of everything. And I know I've done that with this stamp set in the past. So we'll start out with some crushed curry. We'll actually ink the whole thing up in crushed curry. And then what we might do, oops, sorry for the noise, is we might take a dauber. So now I know I'm getting away from the real simple thing, because not everybody has the daubers and not everybody knows how to or wants to do this type of stamping. So I admit I've kind of gone off the reservation with the colors. But it's still, honestly, once you've watched this video, if you have some of these supplies, it's not going to take forever to figure this out. It's not rocket science. So a little bit of red, and then a little bit of, where's my orange? Oh, pumpkin pie right there, right on top. And a little bit of that. And we can do this more than once, too. Okay, so a little bit of pumpkin pie. I may have covered up most of my yellow. And then this is when we really have to do that huffing on it thing that I mentioned. It's kind of the thing that you do when you're trying to clean your glasses and you want to fog them up a little bit. So that's what we do. We're going to huff on it. Oh, and look at all that yellow ink there. Would be better not to use one's hand to do that, by the way. Better to use a damp cloth or something. It's okay, wiping it on my jeans. So we huff on it a little bit. And we can just go over to one side and stamp. Okay, I did really get rid of most of the yellow, didn't I? And then we can go over to the other side and stamp. And you could even have some of it looking like it's coming down. All right, so for this one, I really just used yellow. But there was enough red on there and enough orange on there that it came out anyway. I kind of thought that might happen. I was actually hoping it would, but not knowing for sure. All right, so there you go. And then, let's see, a sentiment. I kind of like the thinking of you, and I don't know if the hello and the thinking of you are together or separate. They are separate. So here's what we can do. I love a good hello stamp, because again, it can be for almost anything. Same thing about thinking for you. Okay, so we're thinking of you, not for you. Thinking of you. All right, so I'm going to put that down upside down on my mat here, and I think I'll use the black ink. Am I still in frame? Yes, okay. And then I'm just going to do hello kind of down here. Okay, not bad. I think I'm going up. I always go uphill, even if it's just the tiniest bit. I do not know why. All right, now the one thing that I would kind of like to do, except they're not here, I just don't like the fact that the tree looks like it's, oh, look, never mind. There's a stamp for that. I was going to say I would use my blends or I would use my pens, but then, again, that's not a beginner thing either. So there's just this little kind of shadowy thing here, and what I can do with that is to ink that up in the, wherever it went now. I put things down and then they just disappear. here is the pecan pie, but what I'm going to do, I think, well, we'll do it two different ways. I'm going to ink it up full strength and just kind of put some of that like that. And then I might do a second generation like that. So we've got kind of a shadow under there or some ground under there, just so it doesn't look like the tree is floating in space. Okay, so that's pretty easy too, it really is. And then again, rather than putting the stamp or the sentiment inside, I'm going to leave it blank for now so that this can be hello and happy birthday or hello and anything you want it to be. All right, where are we at here? Oh, it's almost 8 o'clock, so I kept saying I wasn't going to take too long. But I think I have one more, and I already showed you the cardinal project. So this one is kind of a fun one. So we have a regular basic white card base that is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and then we have a piece of basic black that is 3 3/4 by 5, giving it a bigger border. And then this piece is just 1/8 of an inch less of that. So it's not 3 3/4. It would be like it would be 3 4/8. I'm thinking. And so just 1/8 of an inch less. I don't want to say something that's not true. I suppose I could measure it though, couldn't I? Imagine that. Let's see. So it is 3 5/8 by 4 7/8. Okay. And all you need is a ruler, but you don't have to do all those eighths. So now here's another way. I guess I really can't call it watercoloring. That would be sort of cheating, but you might have to. So Stampin' Up! Has always had some stamps over the years that have what I call blotches and blobs in them. And again, if you've been watching me for a while, you know I'm a big fan of blotches and blobs. So this is a stamp set called Hello Beautiful that retired in 2023, but we have other stamp sets that'll have at least some type of a blotch in them. This blotch is kind of cool. It's kind of the right size that I'm looking for. I'm just going to check and see if I have another one. No, that's really kind of the only one I have that has the blob that I want. So it's a highly technical name, blotches and blobs. All right, so I do like that one. I don't, let me see, 1, 2, 3. There's one that's smaller, but I almost feel like it's too small. All right, well, I was going to do like 5 colors, but maybe I won't be able to do 5 colors because that blob isn't big enough. Okay, so let's put our blob on a block. And for this one, I picked a kind of a light color scheme. For this one, I picked Lemon Lime Twist, Timid Tiger, Balmy Blue, and Highland Heather. And then I was just going to do one of the colors on either end, but I just won't do that. We'll have 4 separate colors. All right. And let's see. Let's kind of, do we want to alternate them and have them? Yeah, I think we do. So I'll start with Highland Heather. And you know what I did forget? I forgot a pad, but I've been doing okay without it, so I guess I'll be okay. So we're going to try to have this kind of going right down the middle. Okay, so there's Highland Heather. Kind of wish I had stamped off a little bit because that's not as light as I was expecting it to be. It is a lighter color, but in this case, maybe not quite so much. And in this case, I do want to clean off my stamps in between uses. So I'll get out. Works better if you try to open the right end, just so you know. Get out one of my chamois and clean that off. And then just kind of tap it dry. And then the Timid Tiger, which is not as bright as Pumpkin Pie, but that's pretty bright. I don't know. It's not very timid looking to me, is it? So we're getting some darker colors here than I anticipated. So stamping off might have been okay. I don't know how much it matters. If I hadn't told you I was using light colors, you never would have known, right? Hey, Mary Kay, how are you? Sorry, I keep forgetting to look at comments. Got any trips planned? Okay, and I probably should have paid a little bit more attention to my spacing as well, because now look what happened. So I'm going to flip it over and do it again, and we can do that. This time I'm just going to start here because that's where I am, and I'm going to go way closer to the edge. Okay. And I could stamp off, but it's okay. Like I said, if I hadn't told you that I was going to make this later, then you never would have known, right? So we'll go with the timid tiger next, the not so timid tiger, I should say. And I am sort of flipping the stamp around between uses so it's not facing exactly the same way and looking exactly the same each time. Okay, then Highland Heather will be next. Oh, I don't think I'm in frame here. There we go, much better. Okay, I mean, it's like if this is Highland Heather, what does the Gorgeous Grape look like? Because that's the darker version. So still not quite enough room. So I really should have even maybe gone off the edge. But the other blob, I don't think I would have been happy with it. It would have been too small. At least I think it would have been too small. Well, no, again, not thrilled with that. Nope, not thrilled with that at all. Well, okay. Again, I don't like to keep fixing it when I'm on the air just because it takes up too much time. But I might fix it later. All right, I'm just going to give this kind of a little whatever because I want it to be dry. And then I just want to stamp one kind of bold sentiment across the front. And the boldest sentiment that I could find right now, because I don't happen to have one of the stamp sets that has a bold sentiment. This is a business stamp set that was made basically for us demonstrators. However, if you have a business where you sell anything, you know, handmade goods, crocheted things, cards, whatever you might sell, something like this is really kind of neat, and I'm sure you could find it on eBay, but it's been retired for a while now. Well, it says it retired April of 2025, but I don't know why I thought it retired earlier than that, but maybe I'm wrong. It happens. Sometimes I'm wrong. Imagine that. Okay. And I got stamps everywhere here, and I'll have to figure out where they all belong later. All right, so again, I'm going to put my stamp down on my glass mat, hoping to get the stamp straight there, and then hoping to get it straight on the block. Still absolutely no guarantee that I'm going to get it straight on the card. And again, I'm using the Memento Black and coming in and centering it. And I'm going to let it sit for a couple of seconds so that the ink soaks in because I would like it to be darker. Okay, so there's a little bit of a glitch there. I'm not going to try to fix it by stamping over it again because I'm not good at that. I'll be honest with you. Some people can line it up with the clear stamps and do it like a pro. I am not one of them. So when something like that happens, I like to take, well, with black I could even take a Sharpie marker, but I'm not sure I have a black one here, to be honest with you. I've got gold and silver. Well, I have a big fat one, but that could be a mistake. Or you can take the corner of your ink pad and one of our blender pens. I think I showed you that last week, maybe the week before. This is a fat one. This could be a big fat mistake. No pun intended. I could just dab a little bit of that there. Yeah, I should be using a fine tip one. This is just me being lazy. But I honestly don't think I have a fine tip one up here. I really don't think so. I have fine tip gold, and I've been doing a lot of Zentangle. Anybody do Zentangle? It's very relaxing, unless you're a super type A personality, in which case it'll make you crazy. At least that's my opinion, but I'm not a type A personality, so it doesn't make me crazy. There we go. This is not a thin one, but it's not a fat one either. So I can fix that up with a Sharpie marker and be happy with it. Better than I would be if I tried to fix it by restamping it and made a big blobby mess out of it. Okay, that'll work. So then that is going to go on top of the black layer where there will just be 1/8 of an inch showing. Hello, glue. There we go. Glue's right here. And I just like the color of that. It's fun. It would be great for a happy birthday. We used to have a really, I think it was called Big Wishes. something like that, and it had really bold happy birthday sentiments that I liked a lot. I do like the bold, but they're just, you know, they don't always have them. It's kind of an on again, off again thing. Okay, and then that's going to go on that card. You want to make sure that your opening's in the right direction, because if you put it on upside down, that will annoy you. Ask me how I know. All right, so I do thank you very much for watching me tonight. And if you aren't watching tonight, then I hope you'll be catching on the replay at some point. I love having the YouTube channel as kind of a backup. I also have a YouTube channel called Love Me Some Paper Journals. And I know that's a mouthful, but my original name that I chose for my journal making business got stolen by somebody else because I registered it as a doing business as, but did not register it as an LLC. And so somebody else did, and they win. They got it. So it's Love Me Some Paper Journals. And that is all about journaling, and I will admit that I don't post as regularly on that as I could. But I hope to get back into doing that some more. I make journals, I just haven't taken the time to post them. I'm always making them, but posting them is a different story. All right, so my desktop is just a mess here. But I will take pictures of these, and I think I said that last week and the week before, and I don't think I got to it in either case. I just stuck my finger in black ink. I've got a yellow thumb. You've heard of a green thumb? I have a yellow thumb. Yellow with touches of black. So these are our cards for tonight, and I hope you like them. I'm happy with all of them. I might redo that on white paper just to see the difference, and maybe I'll try it with a clean sponge. Who knows? Because that one's just nasty. But I can't find fat sponges like that in the stores anymore. If anybody knows where I can buy fat sponges, please let me know. Okay? All right. Yeah, you really can't see them all. So the thank you card, the hello card with the stencil, this one made with the yucky sponge, and this one made just by using a brush and using our re-inkers. And you can see in the palette, there's actually almost enough left, but I've learned not to like squeeze the bottle too hard. Almost enough left that I could do something else with this. And if it dries up, it doesn't matter because I can just spray some water in it and use it for something else. Okay, so thank you again for watching me, and I will see you 1 week from tonight. Have a great week and a great weekend. Take care.